What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Trevor here with Backcountry PPG, an instructor and founder of Backcountry. Been flying for 13 years, trained over 650 something students. I don't know, I've lost count. But today's video is a super important one. We are out here in some of the most beautiful terrain in Utah, specifically the West Coast area. Beautiful, huge red rocks. What I want to talk about in today's video is engine outs, or as I will refer to them as motor outs, okay? This is essentially a catastrophic engine failure where your engine suddenly stops working and you have to land. I had two incredible flights yesterday. I actually flew a total of 5 hours yesterday in some insane terrain where if I had had an engine out, it would have been a pretty big deal. And this morning, right on takeoff, I had an engine out and ended up landing not but a couple hundred yards over there. I would say that God and the universe spared me from having an engine out in a really nasty situation, but that is besides the point. What I want to talk about is planning for an engine out, thinking about one, and the steps that I take to reduce my engine out risk as much as possible. So there's two parts to this. The first one is how I actually fly when I'm on the terrain, as I call it. While I'm cruising around, I am thinking about what is going to happen if right now my motor dies. Am I plowing into a tree, a fence, a rock? What I've learned is that the difference between plowing into the tree, the fence, the rock, and just barely missing it and landing beside said object is no more than a small shift of direction, a slight higher altitude, or a little bit off center from the object. So I think about it, and throughout the flight, I suddenly release throttle from time to time to see, okay, what's my situation? And here's the deal. If you're flying over a bed of rocks, dude, and your engine dies and your only option is to plow sideways into a rock, that's an ugly situation. And I've just learned that you can experience the same flight, you can be in the same terrain, slightly to the side of the objects, the obstacles, and your risk is significantly lower. Also with terrain like this, where if you had an engine out on the top of a butte or over something like that, where you have to land on top of it or plow to the side of it versus being able to glide to the bottom. Basically the same experience, but significantly less risk. While flying, while existing, living, driving, whatever it is, it's you're calculating this risk reward. And I'm very aware of my engine out risk reward because that is an uncontrollable variable. But what is controllable is how I think, move, operate, fly to reduce when that happens. Thankfully, this morning's was no big deal. Now, the second part to the engine out is not just the actual landing, right? First part was the landing. Are you gonna be okay? You're gonna break a leg, roll an ankle, or plow into the side of a tree? Like, what's the situation in the actual landing? How can we reduce that risk? The second part is recovery. Now, if you're an East Coast pilot, you're flying around farm fields, cornfields, whatever, recovery is, you hike to the main road, you probably have cell service, not in every area, of course, but you probably have cell service, you call for a ride, whatever, you go home. Once you start venturing into big terrain, places like this where landing over there is, yeah, only a mile away, but that's a 3-hour recovery because you got to take the dirt road all the way over there and you got to have the all-terrain vehicle and you got to be able to get there and they got to hike out and it's going to be 100 degrees in the afternoon and do you have water and blah, blah, blah. Recovery, that is the thing that I think about equally as much, if not more, than just the landing itself. Now, when I do a flight out in these areas, big terrain, big mountains, red rock, whatever it is, it's not as just a spontaneous, sporadic, uncalculated, unplanned flight. I've thought it through. I've looked at the area. I've analyzed where my off-road roads are, where my hiking trails are. Where am I going to get out? Do I have cell service in these areas? Do the people on the ground have a way of tracking my location? Do they know the order of operations once I do have an engine out and how to get to me? Do they know the trails that I'm going to be hiking? So there's planning that goes into all of these flights. Anytime you see a really cool clip of me off somewhere doing something, it's thought through. We've planned this. I've spent 20 minutes sitting looking at my phone. A couple of the apps that I use that really help me is OnX Off-Road and OnX Backcountry. Off-road is going to be your off-road dirt bike, four-wheeler, Jeep trails. Backcountry is going to be your hiking trails. I will refer to both of these when I'm looking at a particular flight. So an example is what we call the hidden mountains that are right over there. There's nothing. There's no recovery. There's no trails, there's no hiking trails, there's no off-road trails. If you end up out there, you are gonna have to bushwhack your own trail out, in which case that's a lot of risk. And I wanna know what my bushwhacking route is gonna be, how long is it gonna be, and I gotta plan accordingly. Let's say I land out somewhere and it's a 5-mile hike out. A 5-mile hike is no big deal if you're prepared for a 5-mile hike. Do you have some food? You know, protein bar, maybe 2 protein bars, some calories, some protein, all of those things. Do you have some electrolytes? Maybe those little running gels that you use when you're running a marathon. Do you have some water? Not just a small little bit of water. Do you have enough water to handle yourself for the hike that is the worst case scenario? If you get a 10-mile hike, dude, plan for 10 miles. I like to bring a life straw. Sometimes we're flying in areas where there is water, and using the life straw is gonna give me a way of getting more water. I like to bring medical wrap in the off chance I hurt my ankle, roll my ankle. I can wrap it up, at least I have some stability. I bring some tools, whether that's a Leatherman, a knife, spark plug and spark plug wrench in the off chance that I can take back off. Whatever it is, some baseline level of tools. I like to bring hand warmers. If it's nighttime or evening time and you land out, you got a 3-5 mile hike, but it's getting cold, it's down to 40 degrees, be glad you have some. I bring a space blanket. I bring stuff for fire. Can I start a fire? Do I have a little fire starting kit, a lighter, things like that? Now I may go overkill, but that's because we're flying in overkill terrain. This stuff is insane and it does not take a lot for it to be a big deal. So again, I think about it. And what I see in the paramotor community generally is that people don't consider both of those things. They don't consider what the landing's gonna look like. And you could see that when dudes are flying in a way where you're taking unnecessary engine out risk. Like, dude, if your engine died right there, your only option was to plow into the side of the rock. Dude, if your engine died right there, you're landing in the top of trees. You're landing in the river. You're landing, you know, insert XYZ. Thinking about what the landing itself looks like. And again, you can have the same flying experience with a lot less risk if you just think about it and shift slightly. And then the recovery. And that's a big one, especially when you've got dudes that aren't familiar with terrain like this, that haven't gone out and had situations, whether on a dirt bike, 4-wheeler, side-by-side, whatever. You've never been out there where it's like, oh, you know, we're 20 miles from the road and there's no service, right? Hey guys, Future Trevor here, jumping in when we're talking about tools and supplies to bring with you on your adventure flights. I wanted to mention that I am actually working on a handful of bags attached to a paramotor, side mount saddle bags, under bags, all different kind of bags. I really like making bags for some reason, but I wanted to make stuff specific for carrying tools, for carrying supplies, for carrying protein bars, for carrying water. In the world of paramotoring, there really isn't any great bags that you can attach to your paramotor. There are the Scout adventure bags, which do work good, and I'm not discrediting those in the slightest, but there isn't anything that's a little bit smaller, more compact, that fits in specific locations for you to carry said things, and that is what we're working on. I'm also working on some saddlebags that attach to the side for your camping equipment, for your food, for whatever it is. All things paramotoring related, all things bag related, we are working on adding to our accessory list. For more information on that, stay tuned. We will be posting stuff here soon. And with that being said, right back to what I was saying. You gotta plan a little bit, guys. You gotta think through it. I just flew a big mountain range yesterday, but I knew where the routes were. I knew where the trails were. I knew my glide slope. I knew how high I needed to be. I knew what my worst case hike out was gonna be. It was thought through. And it didn't take an hour to think it through, but it took a little bit of time and it significantly reduced my risk. We never fly blind skies, as I say, meaning you should never take off into a sky which you haven't checked the weather. You also should never have a blind flight. You shouldn't fly into terrain that you haven't thought through, you haven't looked at, you haven't checked a map, you haven't considered the worst case scenario. Say you do have an engine out. I always run an app called Gaggle. If you use Gaggle, there's a thing called emergency contact that can warn people if you have an engine out, if you lose service for too long, and if you suddenly crash. Well, do you have someone picked for this warning? If they do get this warning, they're basically gonna get your GPS coordinates. And if you lose service, at least it'll be within your proximity. If you don't have anybody picked out, what are they gonna do? Where are they gonna look? Where were you? You know, if I took off right now and flew away, nobody knows which way I'm gonna go. I could start this way, but end up way over there. And then on top of that, if you do have somebody picked out, what's the protocol? What are they gonna do? What's step one? How long do they give you? Right, if the individuals in my circle who get this notification, I say, if you don't hear from me in 20 minutes, then it's an actual situation. Because as soon as I land, if I have cell service, I'm immediately gonna send a message. If I land out somewhere, which is common, I don't have cell service, I will immediately take back off and I will send them a text that I'm okay. There's a protocol, there's a system. And then on top of that, we've talked about what it looks like to actually recover me from situations, what my thought process is gonna be, how I'm gonna approach that, and all of those things. You gotta do this, guys. You gotta think about it. We gotta reduce our risk. And it's not that we're trying to cut out all the fun. We just need to reduce risk as much as possible as paramotor pilots. And hopefully in this video, you'll learn something that may save your day one day. And with all of that being said, if you guys are interested in learning how to fly paramotors, we do offer a 10-day beginner training program out of Salt Lake City, Utah in the spring, summer, fall, and out of Salton Sea, California in the wintertime. We also offer a 5-day adventure training class where you can come with me on a handful of different adventure flights where I'll brief, plan and fly it with you, teaching you about the wind, the weather, the rotor, how I approach, how I think about things. During that class, we also do skills training, where I'll teach you energy management, better launches, better landings, ground school, everything else, and anything else that your heart so desires. With all of that being said, guys, we also offer these Uinta Adventure Packs, which are the best chest packs for in-flight, quick access to your cell phone, carry everything else that you want. Those are available at uintapacks.com. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you all next time.